Excuse me for doing a lot of fast forwarding to make up for my random wandering around. I'll get it back to normal speed once we get around to the point when I see raw footage where I finally go after Braid, or when I see we're going through a new area, or maybe just run into some other boss from this game I don't remember. Of course, that leaves me with trying to come up with things to kill time with in this clip, and possibly others. And that's going to be a little difficult, since Metroid isn't exactly a narrative-heavy series in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, sure, there are some things that are canon in the series, but they're kind of kept vague for the most part, and some of the interpretations of older things have either oddly just don't fit in to the actual games, or were retconned into things that I'm not sure I consider my own headcanon. For example, before going off on her own to be a bounty hunter, Samus was part of the Federation military. I don't think she ever used the Viera suit or any of the other Chozo armor variants in her time there. Otherwise, they really wouldn't have just let her walk off to become a freelancer. At least not considering their future attitudes towards various powerful things Samus runs into across the series. And good God, don't get me started on Adam. The guy was supposed to be a superior officer that she respected. But, I mean seriously, I just can't completely ignore his existence, since I enjoyed Fusion. But Metroid Other M really didn't do anyone any favors, and it reminded us all why Nintendo doesn't typically do that many narrative-focused games. Right. Of course I managed to screw up building that staircase. I can't really tell if a lava bath is any more painful to Samus than an acid one. All I know is that, at her weakest, she takes it better than a lot of other video game protagonists. Seriously, just how many would die from a single touch? Granted, over the years it's become less of a constant thing, but still, really helps you appreciate even the weaker armors in this game. Sure, damage accumulates more quickly, but there's still a level of protection you don't typically get with this kind of hazard. Really wish I knew what to call those mortar pipe things. I suppose I could take a while checking the Metroid wiki to find out, but typically I would just see a list of names and need to click each individual one to see if the image was the thing I'd like to know the name of. That feels like a bit more effort than this particular enemy is worth. And then, of course, there's the risk that the enemy in question has a name about as stupid as Mellow. Granted, in the original Japanese it was named Mero, and the localization team picked a word that happened to sound similar. Maybe I should just be thankful that the game designers didn't use some of the usual names to constantly recurring vehicles or enemies. Seriously, whenever somebody says Wraith, I end up with a split second of my brain trying to figure out if they're talking about the aliens from Stargate Atlantis, the hover tank from Halo, the cloak-capable fighter from StarCraft, or one of the 4 possible characters from Marvel Comics. Seriously, when 4 different people in the same comic multiverse use the exact same name, it's been overused. I don't care how cool it sounds. That's not the only word that feels pretty overused in various fictional universes. That was just the first that came to mind. And that wasn't even all the times I've seen the word Wraith used. Just the ones I could remember off the top of my head. And say what you will about Nintendo's creativity when it comes to storytelling, they rarely if ever use names that could make you think of other franchises. Right, of course there's no way down from here. Great, now my mind started wishing we had something like the Avengers team up with the various Nintendo characters, Super Smash Brawl felt like they were certainly considering something like that, but apparently Nintendo preferred not to make any of that kind of crossover story as more than just a single one-shot. I can respect that. Yeah, this area is new. New enough that I'll slow things down at least until I start to blatantly spin my wheels again. Never mind, that didn't go particularly far before we hit the next roadblock. Guess it's back to my previous nonsensical musings about various Nintendo characters teaming up for an Avengers Justice League style team-up. Kinda like with a lot of crossover team-ups, I'm pretty sure that the villains would have to get buffed to be a multi-person threat, and some of the more powerful Nintendo characters would need to get nerfed so they don't completely overshadow the rest of the team to an obscene degree. A lot of people tend to look at Samus in the same sort of slot that Iron Man took in the Avengers, but that doesn't really feel right to me. For one thing, Samus doesn't build any of her own suits as far as I can tell. She just has a base suit that gets upgraded or downgraded as the game in question demands. So she's essentially the easiest one to buff and nerf, since it happens to her pretty frequently. Granted, she does design her own ships, so that's something, but it's not like those ships typically see a whole lot of the combat here. With a bare few exceptions, she deals with everything on foot, using Chozo-granted technology for the most part, and occasionally whatever else her suit can integrate into its systems. That's certainly different enough from Tony Stark building and designing pretty much everything he uses, that I can't really compare the two outside of they put on metal suits. I can't really put her into a Captain America or Batman role in her team either. I don't recall any of her games or spin-offs showing her as having any kind of leadership qualities, even if she's certainly got enough going for her that she's probably a capable tactician to be able to survive all the threats that she runs into in any given game. For lack of a more suited role, I'd probably put her somewhere around the slot that Thor fills. One of the heavy hitters who knows how to handle herself, but doesn't really know how to lead others. Of course, that applies to at least two other Nintendo leads. Pit from Kid Icarus, and of course, Kirby. And considering just how heavy-hitting Kirby can actually be, holy shit! Samus just can't even begin to compare to that little puffball in terms of just how much damage he can do when he gets serious. I wasn't especially grabbed by the series when I tried it before, but I'll still consider eventually doing at least a few of the Kirby games in the future. At the very least, that series seems to be another good change of pace from the usual war-focused games I typically do. Okay, so the acid we see down there disappears when we go far enough to the left. Looks like we'll have a hell of a time getting back up from this direction. Still, I certainly appreciate being somewhere else. Apparently I didn't see the potential spot to drop down from on the left side of one of the hallways there. Or maybe I just felt I should check everything to the right of that before dropping down another hole that we might not be able to climb back out of. Oh dear. Seems we need to get onto that thing in ball form somehow. Even though if we did, that still wouldn't change the fact that there are plenty of barriers blocking the way left. Just another thing I'll have to take some time to figure out. Really? Bloody hell, another block that can only be broken by a missile that hits it from a very specific direction below. And it's in the exact same room as the other missile block. there goes some of the sense that we were making some progress. Again, feeling cock-blocked, but it feels more like my fault than the game's. I just wish I knew what I was doing wrong. And of course, I'm stubborn enough to keep trying to move forward using the methods that I've already proved won't work. Though since this is supposed to be Samus's first major mission, I can't help imagining she's starting to get even more angry than I am at what's going on here. These were probably her childhood stomping grounds, and even assuming she remembered how maze-like they could be, all these years later, I'm sure she's cursing Mother Brain for making the maze more of a pain in the ass. Hell, she probably has a much easier time dealing with her usual bounty missions than this. At most, she'll just have some trouble finding where her target is hiding, and when she gets there, the problem is usually resolved less than 10 minutes later, even if they shell out some money for some mercenary protection. But there is absolutely no way that any crime lord or person trying to flee from bail would make things this tough for her to reach the bastard once she got to the right approximate area of the right planet. At least, that's my headcanon reason why we never see Samus doing any actual bounty hunting, despite the fact that that's the word used to describe her bloody job. Her regular work is so easy for her to do that she can get away with having the bare minimum of suited abilities, both offensive and defensive, and she probably spends a lot of time during those kinds of missions just trying to think of something to keep her mind occupied while her ship gets from point A to point B. I mean, it's not like her ship has the room to give her a gym to work out in. And I personally know there's only so much reading and meditating I can do before I start getting stir-crazy. Of course, even in the most well-thought-out stories involving people in space, the one thing they rarely seem to think about is how said people avoid cabin fever when stuck in a spaceship and traveling through so much of their bloody lives. I mean, sure, the holodeck in Star Trek goes along that line of thought, and I suppose historical navies did a good job of keeping people busy, but in historical navies, you had large crews of people sailing together. Samus, for the most part, flies alone. No one to interact with, and I certainly doubt she'd be just shooting the shit with any of her bloody bounties. No shipboard holographic room for training, or just simple recreation. Not even enough room to really stretch her legs or get out of her chair. And I can say from personal experience that sitting in a chair for a very extended period of time can be a little unpleasant, even if it's a rather comfy chair. Just one of those really mostly unimportant things I tend to wonder about Samus, considering how little we have to go with her. At least among the firmly canon stuff to the series. Well, canon if you discount stuff like Federation Force and other M. There were some manga released with her, but for one thing, the Origins manga that involved Adam didn't really click with me. Not entirely sure why. Another one, called Samus and Joey, basically had a kid follow her around for a while. Granted, it was probably easier from a storytelling standpoint to have her traveling alongside someone who was far less capable. Still, I can't help feeling that the kid Joey took too much of the story away from Samus herself. And good God, seeing a prepubescent boy with rocket roller skates trying to help Samus and frequently either failing or just getting separated from her to up the tension made me lose interest in a hurry. Now, if that kid was introduced to the Pokemon franchise, he probably would have been extremely endearing. Or if he was there for some other reason than just shoving himself into Samus's life and trying to proclaim himself as her disciple, when she spent a good deal of the first film telling him to go home, I might have grown fondness for him. Instead, the little guy just managed to make me constantly groan much like the human kids in Transformers Armada. Probably a bad sign that I've been fast-forwarding for too long when seeing things move at regular speed just doesn't feel right to my eyes at the moment. Right. The statue behind a barrier we can't get past. Definitely far too used to being blocked off. Still, at least we're being blocked off by fresh obstacles in a fresh area. That has to count as progress. Granted, in hindsight, I can most definitely say I should have gotten this far sooner, but still, I can most definitely say that I'm having plenty of fun with this game. Even when you take into account the lack of a narrative in the story and my own ineptitude on screen. And I certainly hope that plenty of people on this ride with me are enjoying it so far. Questionable pathfinding and easily avoided damage included. How in the hell did I just run into that bug when I damn well know where these guys are coming from? And why did I run back in here when I've already figured out I can't get to the Jozo statue from the door? There we go. At least I realized relatively quickly where the other end of that pipe was. I'm definitely relearning how they hide paths around here. Well, based on the pointy ears, I'm sure we're going to be able to destroy those blocks with the pointy ears now. For a moment, I thought it also let us jump a little higher, but I think maybe I'm just fooling myself. Really want to be able to jump higher, and I most certainly remember that's one of the upgrades we gain in just about every game. Hell, I don't even remember if it's something that comes with the gravity suit a good deal into the game, or if it's something we pick up on its own. And that takes care of the biggest barrier in this tunnel, and thankfully the bugs don't trigger when we're this high above their pipes. I'd ask if we should be worried about whatever made that hole in the background, but we've more than established that the background images in this game are just constantly repeating images that only change based on the general area we're in. Hell that, and I'm managing to make myself injured dealing with some pretty basic monsters right in the foreground. Tempting to save since we've made some progress, but I'd rather make sure that we've got everything done that we can in here. Still, considering we're not in any hurry to get the job done, let's quickly check our surroundings. At the very least, I'm sure the next clip will involve us finally fighting against Kraid. Okay, so we've gotten to the side of the room where the other missile block is. May as well take that out since the other one never regenerated, then check to see if there's anything higher up. Right. Don't see anything but another way down, though to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of ways forward, even when we had the tools to go on. Hopefully, my eyes will have made the proper adjustments by the time we get to Metroid 2. Then the question will be, which game do I do first? The fan-made Metroid 2 remake, or the 3DS Samus Returns version? Both bring plenty to the table. just noticed that when we kill the creatures with eye stalks, the eyes last just a bit longer to fall down without the rest of the body. Surprisingly gory for a game that's rated E for everyone.